Have you ever considered that the most frightening thing about life isn't death, but the simple fact that you exist at all? While most people spend their nights worrying about mortality, there's an entirely different kind of terror lurking beneath our consciousness, one that suggests our very existence is a cosmic trap from which there's absolutely no escape. This isn't just philosophical speculation, it's a profound recognition that once you're born into this reality, you're permanently locked into the experience of being. There's no exit strategy, no way to opt out of consciousness, and nowhere to hide from the fundamental mystery of what it means to exist in this incomprehensible universe. Think about it for a moment. From the instant you became aware of yourself, you've been trapped inside your own experience. You can't step outside your perspective, can't truly know what it's like to be anyone else, and can't even imagine what it would be like to not exist. Even death doesn't offer genuine escape. If consciousness ends, there's no you left to experience the relief of non-existence. If consciousness continues in some form, you're still stuck being you, just in a different context. This realization struck the early 20th century horror writer Howard Phillips Lovecraft with particular force. Unlike his contemporaries who wrote about vampires, ghosts, and human monsters, Lovecraft understood that the most profound terror comes not from creatures that might harm us, but from the simple recognition of our position in an incomprehensible cosmos. Lovecraft's fiction introduced readers to what would become known as cosmic horror, the idea that the universe itself is the source of our deepest fears. His stories don't rely on jump scares or gore, but on the slow creeping realization that we exist in a reality far stranger and more terrifying than we could possibly imagine. At the heart of Lovecraft's work lies a philosophical position that scholars now call cosmicism. This worldview suggests that humanity occupies no special place in the universe, that there's no divine plan or inherent meaning to our existence, and that we're simply insignificant specks of consciousness floating through an indifferent cosmos filled with forces beyond our comprehension. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. Lovecraft argued that our terror doesn't come from being insignificant, but from gradually becoming aware of just how insignificant we are. As our scientific understanding expands, as we peer deeper into space and discover the true scale of the universe, we simultaneously discover the vastness of our own ignorance. Consider this haunting observation from Lovecraft. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. What makes this particularly chilling is the recognition that the more we learn, the more we discover we don't know. Every scientific breakthrough reveals 10 new mysteries. Every answer generates 100 new questions. Perhaps nowhere is this concept more powerfully illustrated than in Lovecraft's most famous story, The Call of Cthulhu. The tale introduces readers to an ancient entity of unimaginable power that lies dormant beneath the Pacific Ocean. But what makes Cthulhu truly terrifying isn't its potential for destruction, it's the fact that human minds literally cannot comprehend its true nature. Characters in the story can only encounter fragments of Cthulhu through dreams, artistic visions, or in states of madness. The entity exists partially outside our dimensional reality, making it impossible for normal human consciousness to grasp its full form or purpose. This limitation isn't a plot device, it's a metaphor for our fundamental predicament as conscious beings trapped in limited perceptual apparatus. Cthulhu belongs to a group called the Great Old Ones, ancient beings who existed long before humanity and operate according to logic and motivations completely alien to human understanding. The entire mythological framework that emerged from Lovecraft's work, now known as the Cthulhu Mythos, serves as an extended meditation on what it means to exist in a universe where the most important forces and entities are forever beyond our comprehension. What makes Lovecraft's vision particularly unsettling is his suggestion that ignorance might actually be a form of mercy. As human knowledge expands, as we develop more sophisticated scientific and mathematical tools for understanding reality, we don't find comfort, we find increasing reasons for existential dread. One of Lovecraft's protagonists captures this perfectly. I shall never sleep calmly again when I think of the horrors that lurk ceaselessly behind life in time and in space, and of those unhallowed blasphemies from elder stars which dream beneath the sea. The implication is chilling. The more we understand about the true nature of reality, the more terrifying it becomes. Scientific progress doesn't lead to enlightenment and peace. but to the recognition of our profound vulnerability and ignorance in the face of cosmic forces beyond our control or comprehension. Lovecraft expressed this idea most powerfully through another character's reflection. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday, the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. Contemporary horror writer Thomas Ligotti, deeply influenced by Lovecraft's vision, has extended these ideas in his philosophical work, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. Ligotti argues that humans are fundamentally aware of the horrific nature of existence, but we've developed elaborate psychological and cultural mechanisms to avoid confronting this awareness directly. According to Ligotti, virtually all human activity, our constant need for entertainment, our pursuit of goals and ideals, our creation of meaning and purpose, represents an elaborate conspiracy we've constructed to distract ourselves from the fundamental horror of being conscious in an incomprehensible universe. Watch people's behavior closely, Ligotti suggests, and you'll see the evidence everywhere. Children spin in circles until they collapse with dizziness, he observes, noting our instinctive need to escape normal consciousness through any means available. Adults do the same thing through work, relationships, hobbies, substances, spiritual practices, and countless other forms of distraction and escape. The implication is that our entire civilization represents humanity's collective attempt to avoid sitting still long enough to confront the raw reality of our existential situation. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of our cosmic predicament isn't just that we're trapped in existence, it's that we were always going to be trapped. If the universe operates according to deterministic principles, as our best scientific understanding suggests, then everything that happens is the inevitable result of prior causes. This means that billions of years before you were born, before your parents met, before humanity evolved, before Earth formed, the initial conditions of the universe already contained the inevitability of your existence. You weren't chosen to exist, you were always going to exist. From the moment of the Big Bang, the cosmic dice were already cast, and you were destined to find yourself exactly where you are right now, wondering about these very questions. This realization adds another layer of existential vertigo to our situation. Why you? Why any of us? Of all the possible beings that could exist, but don't, of all the potential consciousnesses that could arise, but won't, why were you among the unlucky few selected by cosmic chance to experience this strange predicament? And yet, perhaps there's something oddly comforting about recognizing the full scope of our cosmic predicament. Once you accept that you're permanently attached to this strange ride called existence, that you are always going to be here, and that you have no choice but to see it through to whatever conclusion awaits, a certain kind of peace becomes possible. The most thrilling amusement park rides are terrifying precisely because they make us feel out of control, suspended between safety and danger, familiar and unknown. The fear is exactly what makes them exhilarating. Similarly, maybe the terror of existence is what makes consciousness such an extraordinary experience. When you're strapped into a roller coaster, you can spend the entire ride screaming in terror, or you can surrender to the experience and find moments of joy and wonder mixed in with the fear. The ride continues either way, but your relationship to it can transform the entire experience. Perhaps the deepest wisdom lies not in trying to escape or deny the fundamental strangeness and terror of existence, but in learning to find beauty in the very things that frighten us most. The fact that we exist in a universe far stranger than we can comprehend, that we're conscious specks floating through incomprehensible vastness, that we're part of something so much larger and more mysterious than ourselves. These aren't just sources of terror, they're sources of wonder. The unknown entities that might exist beyond our perception, the cosmic forces that shape reality according to logic we can't grasp, the sheer improbability of consciousness arising in this particular configuration of matter and energy, all of this points to something magnificent and terrible and beautiful about the nature of reality. We are each cosmic accidents that became conscious of themselves, temporary arrangements of atoms that somehow developed the ability to contemplate the infinite, brief candles flickering in the cosmic darkness while wondering about the nature of light itself. The horror of existence isn't something to be solved or escaped. It's something to be lived through with as much grace, curiosity, and courage as we can muster. We're all passengers on this cosmic journey, whether we like it or not, attached to the eternal body of the universe, along for whatever ride reality has in store for us. Fear is real. The mystery is real. The sense of being utterly lost in something far beyond our understanding is real. But so is the extraordinary privilege of being conscious during this brief moment in cosmic history, of being able to think and feel and wonder about these questions at all. When this particular ride finally ends, whether that means dissolution into nothingness or transition into some other form of existence, perhaps we can step off with grace, carrying whatever remnants of wonder and joy we manage to discover along the way. Maybe we'll even find ourselves smiling at the memory of how frightened we were, and how beautiful that fear turned out to be. After all, the best adventures are always the ones that scare us most, and existence itself might just be the ultimate adventure, terrifying, incomprehensible, inescapable, and absolutely worth experiencing. The universe may be stranger and more terrible than we can imagine, but we're here anyway, conscious and wondering and afraid and amazed, and perhaps that's exactly as it should be.